Well, that's the Gospel reading is a very good example of how baffling the Bible can be, I think. It's a very small chunk from a much longer discourse or speech by Jesus to his disciples just before he is arrested and crucified, just before the Last Supper. And it's full of quotations from the Old Testament, all sort of links or allusions to the Old Testament. And I'm not going to unpack it here. I unpacked it a bit in my reflection that I think Simon P. very kindly sent out last night. But of course it's here, the reading is here because of its last lines. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. The whole passage from Matthew chapter 24, which is where it's from, these are just 6 verses from it, is all about something that's the part of the Bible we're very keen on, which is the end of all things, the end of the world, the end times, and which we tend to look at in a rather baffling way. Though perhaps in the current pandemic, with all the apocalyptic language that's been floating about, perhaps we can't dismiss all this quite so easily. But the key point is what Jesus says at the end. Whatever happens, hold on to me, hold on to my words, my teaching, my truth, because they express the truth and the love of God. My words will not pass away. And there's a poignancy too in the words from the letter to the church in Colossae, Greek city, that's why it's called Colossians, written by Paul, where he says, with gratitude in your hearts, sing psalms, hymns and spiritual songs to God. Well, if only we could. Singing has been part of the worship and life of the church since its beginning. It's there in the synagogues from which church worship sprang, and so on. Singing is about celebration, and it's very hard not to sing. We're grateful to have the music we have in our service here. But what Paul does is to set the word of Christ dwelling in you richly in the midst of our relationships with each other. Clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness and patience. Bear with one another and forgive each other. That's what allowing the word of Christ to dwell in you richly actually means. And by the word of Christ, Paul doesn't necessarily mean the words that we now have in the Bible, because that part of the Bible, the New Testament, which is all about Jesus, hadn't reached its full form when those words were written. After all, that is itself part of the Bible. But he means the living word who is Jesus himself, who can dwell in us through the Spirit of God, and who can bring us God's truth and enable us to love, even if we don't feel we can. And I'm going to embarrass him now, because I'm going to say that I am extremely grateful to Anne and Simon for their roles as church wardens. You may think, what does a church warden do? I think the answer is, what does a church warden not do? One or other of them is here, or both of them are here at church every Sunday. Simon, I think it was the electric Simon was dealing with on Friday, if I remember correctly. Heating. See, I got it wrong. See, what do I know? Because the building and the upkeep of the building is actually the responsibility of me, but also the church wardens. So Lindsay's heating people were here on Friday, and Simon was there to be with them. And there are so many other jobs that they do. And they've taken this on for another year, and I want to thank them, because they are signs too of that word of Christ dwelling in us richly and in their service here. So I'm going to finish my talk now, you'll be pleased to know, and I'm going to go straight to the admission of church.